Alright, so let's test the sound because you don't know if it's working or not. I noticed a little thing here thinking about Hythloday. Okay, my sound's working. What about this? Hythloday. Okay. My sound's working.
And in any event, they're normally obligated to make the application.
Hythloday. Okay. My sound's working.
And in any event, they're normally obligated to make the application.
Hythloday. Okay. Okay. So that's working. My sound's working.
And in any event, they're normally obligated.
My mouse is, I guess I need a different mouse. Okay. So, I was watching the other video from the 31st of Hythloday, which I had I think I'd seen a little bit of it prior and was rewatching it, but I did watch it after his last word video, but because somebody had notified me, hey, did you see this last word video? So anyway, I found this, which I think sheds a little bit of light on a couple things. Like, one was, I forget who said this now. Was it Skid Row Radio? That it was almost like a sense of humor thing, like that it wasn't really because it was anything like that. That he wasn't planning this from days ago. Now, I think it's fair for me to say that one reason it was so hard to take was, besides just the obvious, it's always hard to take, was, you know, he had this, he's one of these people, which I can't remember anybody that committed suicide that had this attitude that I knew personally, but I have known second-handedly or whatever of people that supposedly did this. I have known people that convey this attitude, but that, like, okay, I'm not committing suicide. Here's why I'm not committing suicide right now, but you know, someday that's how I'm gonna go. I can think of people right now, but should I mention I don't really know. It's difficult. People have a right to have that attitude. So yeah, I finished work. I'm drinking beers. Anyway, Hythloday had that attitude. He, when we were still talking, was like, well, I'm not going to commit suicide right now, but based on my attitude of life, it's just a matter of when the time comes or whatever. And like he said in his goodbye, oh, I'm achy. Anyway, let's just listen to this and you'll see what I'm talking about. And this is also from the 31st, the day he committed suicide.
They're actually got a date to make a court application, and in any event, they're normally obligated to make the application at a local place to yourself.
Not 100 miles away.
Attend, given reasonable opportunity to attend, and they've done it at a magistrate's court 100 miles away. So, yeah, this is rule of law in the UK. This is abuse of poor people in the UK. This is abuse of vulnerable people in the UK. When I went to court last time, for the 30 warrants that preceded me, they inquired about the vulnerability of those customers and had they checked whether there was any vulnerabilities. Well, there's a big vulnerability here today, and there was last time. I am a vulnerable person who considers suicide all the time, yeah, and is seriously considering it today. Certainly if the police turn up.
Okay, So, in his other video, he mentions that the gas company did turn up. And I wasn't really thinking straight. I left some comments about what might that mean. Because I don't know. I talked to I didn't talk, but I had a brief email exchange with his son right after. I don't really want to burden them with a macabre thing. I am curious. So I was like, did he use gas or da-da-da? Probably not. The gas reference is to this. And it seems to be like, yeah, he didn't have to die. Things just built up on him that day. And he was having these thoughts, and then sure enough, they did show up. Probably with the cops to do whatever they were going to do, which is another thing I'm not really clear on. What was the whole thing with they wanted to come and fit in with the new gas thing, and the people in this video that come to the door are like a prepaid meter or whatever, so he's having some payment dispute, or was it, I don't really understand the dispute with the gas company exactly, but this seems to just say that it all came to a head. And if anybody knows what the disputes were exactly about, I never quite got it, and I rewatched the videos, that at least the ones he still has up, and I still didn't quite, I got the thing about his mom littering and him thinking that's a nuisance fine, like, you know how they do parking tickets and stuff to make money in cities. It's a revenue thing that they pick on old people for things like a littering of a cigarette butt. And, it's not the right way to do it, and it's exploitative of poor people. People that can't fight it, people that, whatever. Not that it's okay to litter, but like Hythloday was saying, it's sort of more of an educational thing to teach a 70-year-old woman not to litter a cigarette butt than, just make money off of it. So that was one thing he was fighting. I think I understood that. He's fighting the Julian Assange stuff. In a non-negative way, I would say, that's sort of a crank thing. Like, he's got big-time lawyers, and what are you going to do? But if that's your hobby and you want to dig in, and who knows, maybe you'll figure something out, or there'll be a thread, or a lawyer will come in and help you, or, fine. Do that. It's sort of tilting at windmills, and I think he knew that. But then that comes together. Also, all of these are kind of, failing at the same time. And then the cops come to your house and force their way in because blah, blah, blah. The part I don't understand out of all of these things. So basically, let's see. I'm sure there's a picture here somewhere. Okay, so he built that in his front yard, and I don't know what the rule of council houses are. There's a lot of pictures of it in this neighborhood of people doing things with their awnings and stuff, and having a lawn, or obviously under there is a rock. I don't see why you couldn't have a deck, why they would object to that. Looks great. There's certainly no safety issue with it. So, not really sure why they were claiming that was inappropriate, because I don't know the laws over there. I know zoning boards and stuff, but he says a neighbor should have had to complain about that, but the council took it upon themselves, and who knows. So I kind of understand this one, though. I don't understand the details just because of the detail of the law, but I understand this one. They were saying he, built something that was unpermitted and tear it down. And the mom with the littering thing, and the Julian Assange thing, again, lots of details. Anybody wants to add, I'd be interested. But I don't really understand, if anybody knows, what the debate was over the gas company thing. That I don't understand. So, So I didn't make any notes about this, but it occurs to me the other people, the people that I have known that died, and there's people in my private life. I know someone who had health insurance, left her job at a nonprofit, didn't have health insurance. They had adopted 2 kids in their lives. One was still a baby, and she'd gotten hurt. They'd spent a lot of money on that, no health insurance. She got sick. They waited and waited for her to go to the hospital. Turns out she had pneumonia, and then she finally went to the hospital, and they said, "Hey, go get some dinner. We're gonna pump her lungs," and she was dead when they came back. Highland Hospital, terrible Oakland hospital, allegedly. Lack of health insurance. And that's that's a personal friend. But online, my personal friends, okay. I think I talked once with a couple times in comments kind of thing with the boring dispatcher and da-da-da-da, people have died. There's Cosmic Zen. Cosmic Zen had some, I forget what it was, prostate, but maybe it wasn't prostate, but it was a very treatable cancer, no health insurance, couldn't get it treated in time, died, 30 or something. Cosmic Zen, enlightened dude, great guy. And then there is Derived Energy, the antinatalist, one of my favorite antinatalists. Like in my top 3 or 4 favorite antinatalists, he's up there. I wouldn't actually rank the top 3 or 4. I like that guy that does the cartoons. I mean, I know he's done deep digs on me, but the guy, I forget at the moment who that. Of course, Old Fan, great person. Derived Energy. Not in that order. You can search Derived Energy in Piro. I talked to him. He was... And don't get me wrong, I'm not glorifying like, oh, no, I think there's... No, I disagreed with him. But he was great. And I do not believe, committed suicide in, an Indonesian prison. I think that was a killed kind of thing. And then you think, oh, he's a British citizen. Of course he'll be an outward. Nope. No, you don't mean as much as you think. You're not a diplomat. You don't have diplomatic immunity. Over there in Indonesia to teach some English? Oh, well, you drowned yourself in a sink. Because, that's a super common and easy way to commit suicide. So, I'm just going to say it. It bothers me. Gary is another one of these people. I'm not concerned trolling. I'm just philosophically discussing. He's one of these people like Hythloday that said, well, not today, but eventually. That's how else do you think I'm going to go out? And I get that. I've thought that. I'm contracting. I got an employment job which allowed me to get a loan. Didn't last very long. I kind of, I knew that ahead of time. Got the loan, and blah, 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 got another job. But anyway, when I was like, I just got into a mortgage. Now I've got to look for work for a few months. How long can this last off my savings when I just paid the down payment on a house? And, it's comforting to realize nobody can take you out of your house alive. Like you can have a shootout or whatever. I mean, not that I would, but I'm saying... The concept, it goes back to when I was in high school. I had no suicidal thoughts at all, as far as I knew. Looking back, maybe I did have some sort of subconscious need to think it through. But, Camus is talking about the main, in the myth of Sisyphus, that the main philosophical question, the only philosophical question possibly, is, to be or not to be, to live or not. So I thought it through. I basically decided, yeah, I'm going to live. But I also realized, hey, you got to think this through. And what things that happen to you, it's totally legit. You can make it's pro-choice. You can't decide for everybody whether life is worth it, but you can decide for yourself. And yet when people make that decision, it's very sad and it's destructive. And it's kind of especially traumatic when you've worried a lot, you know. One thing I was wanting to say was, when when Hythloday sort of cut off and like, you're not my friend anymore or whatever, because he had acknowledged my friendship, you know, for a few years before that, and we were talking, like I've been saying. There were various things going on. I was arguing with him. I was telling him, hey, moron, stop telling me about circular arguments. I understand. Mine isn't circular, yours circular. We were talking about my theory of illusions exist, right? But in private, on the Skype, I had an idea. I was like, ding, because I had applied for the Khan Academy as a programmer, and that didn't work out, but I'd actually also applied for being an online teacher, which wouldn't have really worked out, but it was interesting to me to do it. And I'm not sure I'd be great at it in the formula that people are monetizing off of their, programmer education. But I was like, and he never answered this message. So I thought this might be why. I was like, hey, because Hythloday had gone back and gotten a math degree, then decided he probably didn't want to just teach middle school, and then there was his complications of life, and he tried to commit suicide and done all this stuff where, okay, there was this pressure of going back and getting your math education and going to use it at a job, which, and the regular job for that would be being a teacher, wasn't really appealing to him once it really came to the fact. And I was like, you should apply to Khan Academy or one of these other online teaching, because there was a lot of them. And in the case of programming, there's a ton of them, but also math, because people they want these this math knowledge or education, but also it overlaps with the programming knowledge, which is a huge market. And he was really good with the online, whack-em pad, whiteboard, having very neat handwriting, and I thought this guy could describe, trigonometry and a lot of advanced mathematics really well and be good at that. And I was wondering if one of the reasons that he got pissed off at me and was just like, fuck you, Piero, was often it seemed like if you make a suggestion like that out of your heart, he would kind of take it. I would not get him to the point where, seeing it coming, that he would take that as an insult or kind of telling me what I could do. Or maybe he's already depressed. Sometimes when you're depressed and somebody tells you something, hey, I got a good idea for you, and you go, that would be a good idea. Oh, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Fuck you for bringing up my hopes. Or something like that. I thought maybe that was related, because he really would have been good for that. And if you think about it, it's like, even if you did it and were depressed and spent another 10 years going, oh, well, that wasn't worth it for me, he could have helped a lot of students, because he was actually really good at that. Anyway, those are my thoughts, still thinking about Hythloday. And other people. I don't want anybody to die. It's a sad and sucky thing. But he's gone now. I always had this weird idea that when people pass away and then all that's left is my memories, and yet you can easily have a memory or a dream that's totally vivid, and they're talking to you and they have their own ideas and they're saying, you're a jerk, Piero, or whatever. It's not like I'm generating it and making a total puppet. I'm simulating how I think they are, or am I simulating? Is this this memory, this information about them that I can use to have a picture of them in my mind? That's what's left of them. And sometimes it feels like people pass away It's almost like they come and live in my head instead. You know, it's like I know someone dead, and now they're living in my head. You know, and they're eating ideas for bread, and I want to keep them well fed. And then in my head, it's like a whole community of passed away people that have discussions and become part of like my non-metaphysical soul, my soul, in the sense of just all the ideas that are talking, a little community of ideas talking. And in a way it's oddly empowering. Like, I mean, I can hear Hythloday opining on something, and it's not my opinion. He differed with me in so many ways. I mean, we agreed on some things, and we never discussed those because why bother? So that's another funny thing. It's like, my grandmother, all these people that have passed away now that I'm 51, they're still sort of present. But I know it's a simulation in my mind, but I'm a personality, a living personality, somehow generated by my mind. So if my mind takes time to generate, like my grandmother, my passed away grandmothers, and then my grandmothers are giving me advice or whatever about my current life as if they know it, and they're simulated in the same gray matter that my own personality is simulated in. Obviously, it's not my grandmother, but it is a personality that isn't exactly my personality that's running in neurons. See what I'm saying? I think there's really something to how our memories keep people alive, because our memories are part of a living brain, and we give some of that to simulating these other personalities to the degree where they give us advice and say, this isn't right, you've got to do this other thing, or whatever. They disagree, though. And, it's a good idea. About the unification of all of our lives through our ability to share our personalities with each other. So, anyway.
To make a court application, and in any event they're normally obligated to make the application at a local place to yourself, such that you can attend, given reasonable opportunity to attend, and they've done it at a magistrate's court 100 miles away. So yeah, this is rule of law in the UK. This is abuse of poor people in the UK. This is abuse of vulnerable people in the UK. When I went to court last time, for the 30 warrants that preceded me, they inquired about the vulnerability of those customers and had they checked whether there was any vulnerabilities. Well, there's a big vulnerability here today, and there was last time. I am a vulnerable person who considers suicide all the time, and is seriously considering it today.